Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Tickets Please. I'm your host, Josiah Wampfler. On this episode, we'll count down my top 10 films of 2024. In total, I watched 108 films that were released in the United States in 2024, and despite it not nearly being as great a year as 2023, I still managed to find plenty of films to fall in love with and several new filmmakers I'll be keeping an eye on going forward. As usual, if you would like to see my full top 20 list, that is available on twotticketsplease.substack.com. So without further ado, let's start the countdown. Starting out at number 10 on my list of the best films of 2024 is director Jesse Eisenberg's A Real Pain. A humorous and deeply moving examination of personal and societal trauma, A Real Pain is a film that lingers. I felt that coming out of the theater the first time, not exactly knowing the words to describe what I was feeling. When I rewatched it in early January, I felt it again, perhaps more so. And even when writing my review for the film, I couldn't shake its emotional impact. A Real Pain is the story of two cousins reuniting after many years following the death of their grandmother to take a Holocaust tour of Poland, the home she was forced to flee. While the film's mix of comedy and drama may feel like a recipe for disaster, given the extremely serious setting, it is that very dynamic that lends the film its power and authenticity. In his exploration of depression, anxiety, family bonds, Jewish history, generational trauma, and the politics of riding a Polish train while Jewish, Eisenberg finds deeper and more profound truths in the full array of human emotion. Eisenberg, as an actor, is fantastic as David, allowing us to feel the character's self-loathing and anxiety, despite him keeping his cards so close to his chest. Casting Kieran Culkin as Benji may be his most important decision, as the actor delivers a staggering performance that is equal parts manic, funny, and deeply sad. Plus, actors like Will Sharp, who excels as their whip-smart, beleaguered tour guide, or Jennifer Grey, whose divorced mom energy strangely matches well with Benji, help to add other fascinating dynamics to strengthen the film. And as I showed in my full review, Eisenberg's writing here is simply masterful. But in A Real Pain, Eisenberg also proves himself to be an adept visual storyteller, with an eye for creating effective imagery. Throughout the film, Eisenberg demonstrates a remarkable ability to precisely frame his story in a way that lends additional emotional and thematic meaning to his story. And many of those images are why the film has retained such a hold on me all these months later. If you'd like my full thoughts on A Real Pain, you can check out episode 22. At number 9 on my list is a film I saw at the Wisconsin Film Festival, and new coming out would likely be included here. It's director Agnieszka Holland's Green Border. A film that feels shamefully urgent in our current political climate, Green Border follows the various stories of people caught up in the savage situation on the Polish and Belarusian border, including a Syrian family seeking refuge from war, a border agent forced to reckon with his actions, and Polish activists seeking to aid desperate migrants. Since 2014, over 30,000 people have died while crossing borders into Europe. And the border between Poland and Belarus has become particularly deadly, as the two countries send migrants back and forth across the treacherous terrain in a horrible political game. Green Border unflinchingly shows the reality of inhumane immigration policy in crisp black and white, clearly communicating the terror migrants endure and fighting back against attempts to shroud the issue behind supposed nuance. The forest these families must navigate, a natural beauty and color, becomes a harsh, unforgiving wilderness. The border agents tasked with trapping migrants in a cruel purgatory look like monstrous stormtroopers sapped of their color. In desaturating her images, Holland not only evokes the historical fascism these policies flow from, but paints the situation with the moral clarity it deserves. "Why should I show them?" one migrant says when asked to tell their story on camera. "They've been watching our stories for the last 10 years. Green Border, in its blunt depiction of this depravity, is at times difficult to watch, but it is not hopeless. It meets this question with an actual answer, eschewing the all-too-common approach of merely showing us the problem, and instead developing into a story of resistance by those fighting for a just solution." Like my favorite film from 2023, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, Holland's film is ultimately a tale of political awakening. A film about regular people channeling their rage at an immoral situation into tangible action. Through these activist stories, Green Border shows the frustrating limitations of trying to work within systems to effect change, and shows us what can happen when normal people decide to heroically take radical action in response to the viciousness of their governments. As the United States stands on the precipice of a proposed campaign of mass deportation, Green Border could not be more pertinent. A dire warning about the ruthlessness of restrictionist immigration policy, a powerful antidote to anti-immigrant sentiment, and a call for us all to resist in whatever way we can, Holland's film has arrived at the right time. Will we listen to its message? I hope so. Moving on to number 8, I have another film from the Wisconsin Film Festival. Director Radu Jude's Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World. An incredible artistic achievement, wildly funny and strikingly subversive, a primal scream amidst the hellscape of late-stage capitalism, the id of our present political moment, and a fascinating reflection on shifting interpretations of art. Jude's film is a truly radical addition to the political film canon. Presented largely in grainy digital black and white, the Romanian film follows Angela, a fiery, overworked production assistant, as she drives around Bucharest in bumper-to-bumper traffic interviewing prospective subjects for a workplace safety video. Subjects who have been injured due to the carelessness of the company behind the video. In between conducting interviews, screaming at other drivers, and the occasional astute monologue about the plight of the working class, Angela posts on social media as her alter ego, Babita, a possibly satiric side gig where she performs as an Andrew Tate-style right-wing influencer who gets clicks from saying the most offensive things imaginable. In Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World, Jude captures the peculiar, exhausting feeling of living in the world as a working person, both through performance and through form. Alinka Manalake is phenomenal as Angela, delivering hilarious deadpan comedy that feels like a way for her to get through the day. Jude also deploys a mixed media experience here, juxtaposing his modern story of a black and white Carmageddon against a 1982 Romanian film about a female taxi driver. With creative editing that seems to mimic the way we engage with content on TikTok, Jude shows the power images have to shape how we see the world, and how that meaning can change over time, or with different context. This is also shown with a shot of a road sign labeling Bucharest as the Martyred City, a moniker meant to commemorate those who died in the revolution, but now reflects the current reality of the city, where public infrastructure is crumbling, the social safety net has deteriorated, and working people are struggling. As the title suggests, Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World is deeply cynical about the state of the world. It is not a warning about dystopia. It recognizes we've already erected one worldwide, and it doesn't seem to offer much hope in tearing it down. In Angela's story, we see the alienation that many working people feel around the world. And like her, the film seems to find humor in the situation, if only to keep from crying. But buried deep within that cynicism is a kernel of hope that can be found in Jude's reflection on shifting meaning. Just as a sign will not always mean what it was originally intended, or a film will not always be interpreted the same way, the world changes over time. Jude's characters may be alienated from one another in this current capitalist dystopia, but over the course of the film, he shows us how close they are to connecting as people and as workers. As Lenin once said, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. Right now, there are a million reasons to be cynical, but the arc of history is long, and people can bend it toward justice. We can't expect much from the end of the world, but we can struggle to create a new one in its ashes. You can check out my full review of Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World on my Substack. At number 7 on my list is director Luca Guadagnino's Queer, an adaptation of the William S. Burroughs novel of the same name. This is a film Guadagnino has been dreaming of making ever since he first read the book as a teenager. Decades later, that dream has been fulfilled, and with a beautiful screenplay by Justin Kuritzkis, Queer captures the romanticism Luca was likely imagining when he was young, paired with a deep longing that could only come from an older soul. Set in 1950s Mexico City, the film follows American expat William Lee, played by Daniel Craig, and his love affair with a young American soldier, Eugene Allerton, played by Drew Starkey. Lee is brash, temperamental, and controlling. He's a drunk and a junkie, so much so that you can nearly smell the stench on him through the screen. Outwardly, it seems like he loves to hear himself talk, but with those he truly desires, he can't find the right words to say. Allerton, on the other hand, is the definition of cool, calm, and collected. He's a total mystery to Lee, and as their relationship develops in fits and starts, Lee longs for a way to communicate without speaking, seeking out a drug that he believes will allow him to do so, yahe or ayahuasca. Guadagnino captures yearning unlike anyone else. Through slow, deliberate camera movements, a fluttering, moody score from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and deeply affecting performances from Craig and Starkey, Queer envelops its audience in the feeling of two souls longing and failing to touch. Their bodies do touch, of course, and in the process, Guadagnino gives us some of the most sensual and beautifully choreographed sex scenes he's ever rendered. But even amidst the carnal excitement of these moments, a wistfulness remains. As Reznor and Ross's deeply romantic score builds over these scenes, it feels like the instruments themselves are breathing, but you get the feeling like you can't catch your own breath, like it is just centimeters out of reach. Guadagnino blurs the lines between Burroughs and Lee even more than in the original novel, and lends far more empathy and romance to his story than the original. Craig, through his own natural charisma and a tremendously layered performance, helps us to sympathize with a morally complicated character, feel his pain, and reflect on the deeper themes this story contains. Through much of his life, Burroughs kept his sexuality to himself. While Lee is out, and as he indicates, proudly so, you can't help but notice that he is only living proudly as an expat in another country, away from his family, friends, and a culture that may not accept him. In reality, Mexico is merely a compartment in his closet, one where he is able to satiate his desires at night, only to feel the white-hot sting of shame in the dawn's early light. It is what draws him to Allerton, a man even deeper in the closet than him, but one who is not outwardly racked with the same shame that cripples Lee. In many ways, the young man comes to represent the very closet door Lee is so desperate to open, but he doesn't know how to speak to Allerton. He doesn't know the incantation that may fling open the door and rid him of the pain he feels in his soul. So he seeks a heightened reality, through alcohol, through cocaine, through heroin, and eventually through yahe. But as much as we hope to find an escape through drugs, they tend to have a funny way of pointing a mirror back upon all we desire to leave behind. Queer is one of the best films of Guadagnino's career, one of Craig's finest performances, a breakout turn from Drew Starkey, and an astoundingly beautiful film. My number 6 film of 2024 is one of the most invigorating theatrical experiences I had all year. Director Edward Berger's Conclave. A highly dramatic, uber-pulpy political thriller about a Catholic conclave to choose a new pope, this film has it all. Stunning cinematography, immaculate sets, wonderful costuming, a propulsive score, and one of the best casts of the year. I am still in awe of the subtle precision of Ralph Fiennes' performance as Cardinal Lawrence, the man who must oversee the election of the new pope, while struggling with the mysteries left behind by the old one. In addition, Stanley Tucci is pitch perfect as the liberal firebrand Bellini. John Lithgow is great as the suspicious Tremblay, and Sergio Costolido plays the perfect villain as the conservative demagogue Tedesco. Isabella Rossellini also makes her indelible mark on the film, despite only having several minutes of screen time, and Carlos Diaz becomes perhaps the most exciting discovery in the film as Benitez, delivering some of the most emotionally profound lines of the film. As fun as Conclave is, with its political intrigue, texting cardinals, vaping villains, and tea-spilling nuns, it also turned out to be a slightly profound dose of wish fulfillment in these incredibly dark times. It's a war, and you have to commit to a side, Bellini yells at Lawrence, channeling the frustration many of us are feeling right now, watching our own liberals roll over in the face of rising authoritarianism. And Tedesco, the big bad of Conclave, couldn't be a better stand-in for that xenophobic authoritarianism, obsessed with an imagined glorious past and hell-bent on destroying the progress that has been made. But it is still Conclave's final moments that stick with me, especially in the face of Trump's attacks on queer rights. While these Christian nationalists use the Bible to bolster their hateful ideology, Conclave uses it to offer a vision of peace, tolerance, and love. Its characters embrace the uncertainties of this world and find strength in diversity. And like Jesus, born in a lowly manger in Bethlehem, this conclave finds an unlikely leader, one that lives those uncertainties every day. You can check out my full review of Conclave in episode 21. The fifth film on my list was a truly visceral theatrical experience, both times I saw it. A dark noir-inspired queer romance exploring the highs and lows of passionate, obsessive love. Its director Rose Glass's Love Lies Bleeding. Set against the backdrop of 1980s bodybuilding culture, Love Lies Bleeding follows Lou, the manager of a small New Mexico gym who falls for the vagabond strong woman Jackie as she's passing through on her way to a competition in Vegas. An exciting, steamy love affair quickly ensues, but is soon complicated by Lou's dark family history and Jackie's all-consuming pursuit of bodily perfection. In Love Lies Bleeding, Glass has brought together an all-time on-screen pairing with the ever-brilliant Kristen Stewart and exciting breakout performer Katie O'Brien. The duo have an effortless, palpable chemistry that radiates off the screen and makes their relationship incredibly endearing. It's a joy to see Stewart bring her own queer identity to a role, and O'Brien impressively matches her energy, leading on her experience as a bodybuilder. Glass's filmmaking is also superb, leaning into her noir inspirations to conjure a unique vision of the 1980s that is far darker than usually presented. Love Lies Bleeding contains all the colorful clothes and set dressing we're familiar with, but its images feel tainted with dirt and grime. The soundtrack is layered with 80s tracks, but Glass eschews the obvious choices for deeper cuts. Plus, the film is incredibly sensual, both in its depiction of Lou and Jackie's love affair, and the way its high-contrast frames and meticulous sound design feel incredibly tangible. It all adds up to a truly iconic queer genre flick that I'm certain I'll be returning to again and again. For further thoughts, you can check out my full review in episode 20. My number 4 film of 2024 is also one of the most unique films on this list. Director Greg Quidar's Sing Sing. Based on a real-life theater program in the Sing Sing Correctional Facility in New York, the film follows a group of inmates as they prepare for a new production, highlighting their individual experiences and showing how they've found community through art. Coleman Domingo plays Divine G, a founding member of the program, but the rest of the cast largely consists of former inmates. Domingo is tremendous in the role, earning an Oscar nomination for it, but it is actually these other men who emerge as the real highlight of Sing Sing, especially Clarence Macklin. An alumni of the program himself, Macklin plays Divine I, an unlikely addition to the troupe who slowly learns to shed his rough exterior and find peace in performing. Macklin's real-life experience obviously makes him a fit for much of the role, but it is later on in the film where we truly see him shine as an actor, including one of the best Shakespeare monologues I've ever seen. Going into the film, I was concerned it may be a bit saccharine or simplistic. Ignore the prison part, feel good about the brief joy these men get. Thankfully, that is not the case. Through diligent character work, we get to know the men of this theater troupe well, laugh with them, and experience pain with them. But a brilliant decision the film makes is that, outside of Domingo's character, it doesn't reveal the reasons these men are in prison. Divine G, we learn, has been sentenced for a crime he did not commit, and his parole process is a pivotal part of the film. But for Sing Sing's other characters, the filmmakers leave us in the dark, subtly communicating that whatever reasons are unimportant to the humanity of these men, and making us question the whole idea of locking anyone in a cage. That cage is visualized in several beautiful shots of Divine G sticking his hand out of a hole in the window, grasping at the freedom that has been denied to him. It is one of many ways the theater is framed as a respite from the degrading situation around them. It is actually rehabilitation, Divine G says at one point, standing in stark contrast to the dehumanizing punishment and exploitation they face off stage. With incredible performances from its cast, beautiful 35mm cinematography, stunning production design, and an incredibly emotional story from the men who actually experienced life behind bars, Sing Sing is a truly exceptional film. 2 years ago, director Pyle Kapadia's A Night of Knowing Nothing made my top 10 list, and now she is back on the list again. At number 3 is All We Imagine Is Light, a film as beautiful as its title suggests. All We Imagine Is Light follows 3 female healthcare workers struggling to live in Mumbai, India. Anu, the youngest of the 3, is a nurse who has fallen in love with a Muslim man and spends her nights meeting him in secret. Prabha, a nurse and Anu's roommate, is married, but her husband lives in Germany and she hasn't heard from him in quite some time. Parvati, an older cook at the hospital, is being forced out of her home by developers and is considering moving to the countryside. The stories of these 3 Indian women from different generations converges into a moody, tender ode to female friendships set against the impermanence of city life and the pressures of Indian society. With wonderfully immersive sound design, a lovely piano score that underlines the emotion of the film, and breathtaking visual storytelling, All We Imagine Is Light is a stunning display of Kapadia's directorial prowess. Shot on various digital cameras, including small DSLRs, Kapadia and her editors brilliantly emulate the look of 35mm film, with its grainy texture and the unique way it handles light. Plus, with deliberate costuming choices and a gorgeous color grade, Kapadia foregrounds the beautiful blues of the city and later on the steamy warm tones of the countryside. The color coordination in the city scenes is even more impressive, knowing how many scenes were shot run-and-gun style, where the production had little control over their settings. All We Imagine Is Light isn't just a pretty film to look at, though. Its images tell us so much more than its characters ever share with words. Perhaps the best example of this is a quiet scene of Prabha and her new rice cooker. On one of many rainy nights, she discovers that a window has been left open, likely by Anu, soaking the kitchen floor. As Prabha finishes cleaning up the mess, she gets down on the floor and pulls out the red rice cooker, sent to her by her estranged husband days earlier. She looks down at the symbol of her arranged marriage and puts her arms around it in an embrace. While her roommate Anu is out in the rain chasing love, Prabha sits in the dark clinging to this monument to her loneliness. The patriarchal implications of the husband's gift are clear, and the tension between Prabha and Anu is established with a single image. In both its text and subtext, All We Imagine Is Light is a deeply political film. Most obviously, it is profoundly feminist, exploring the inner lives of these three generations of women and the pressures they face due to cultural norms. Specifically, the film tackles arranged marriage in India, exploring Prabha's journey of self-determination in the wake of her husband's abandonment, and Anu's reticence to reveal her secret love affair for fear of her parents and the society around her. As Kapadia told Letterboxd in an interview, these women are imperfect in their advocacy for each other and themselves. As she says, they are wobbly feminists, prone to give in to patriarchal thinking and fail each other at times. Beyond that, the film directly confronts the capitalist and Hindu nationalist realities in India. Anu feels the need to keep her relationship with Shias a secret because of the rampant anti-Muslim sentiment that exists in the country. Kapadia even subtly cloaks their text conversations in that political reality by presenting the messages on screen in the same saffron orange as the Hindu nationalist BJP party. And through melancholic interludes about the increasing struggles of living in Mumbai, as well as Parvati's story of personal displacement, Kapadia also tackles the ways in which the working class are being crushed by capitalist development. They think that by building their towers taller and taller, they can become God, Parvati says at one point. Later on, she and Prabha throw stones at a sign for Zeus Luxury Towers. Class is a privilege, it says, reserved for the privileged. This rich thematic backdrop, combined with wonderful characters, magnificent cinematography, and Kapadia's talent for evoking deep emotion, make All We Imagine Is Light a greatly moving film, and one that truly rewards repeat viewings. We are nearing the end of the list, and director Luca Guadagnino is back. My second favorite film of 2024 is Challengers. A sexy tennis film, a sporty, sexy film. I've seen it 3 times on the big screen, and each time was better than the last. Challengers does what Marvel films think they are doing. The film follows 3 talented tennis players, Tashi, Art, and Patrick, who meet when they are young and become romantically entangled. Jumping back and forth across their lives, Challengers centers on the fateful match between Art and Patrick years later that has more to do with the trio's relationship than it does with tennis. The film is incredibly erotic, despite featuring little actual sex. An endless volley of foreplay between all 3 participants and dripping with queer desire, Guadagnino infuses his comedy with delicious innuendo to go along with the sweaty tension between his characters. In my full review, I likened Challengers to classic Hollywood films, and screenwriter Justin Kuritzky's builds this tension much like director David Lean does in his 1945 masterpiece, Brief Encounter, dropping us right into the climax and pulling back to reveal how we got there. Much like Lean's film, where a married woman struggles with her feelings for another man, Challengers is about repression of desire. Tashi equates tennis to a relationship, and Kuritzky's uses the game to explore the ways that these characters desire one another, struggle against that desire, and ultimately deprive themselves of fulfillment and good tennis. On the page, Challengers is excellent, but in bringing it to the screen, Guadagnino has really outdone himself. None of it would work without a perfect trio, and Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor deliver some of the best performances of the year. The cinematography from Sayambu's Muktipram is electric, bringing ingenuity to every tennis scene and brilliantly framing many of the characters' conversations as verbal sparring matches. Plus, a transcendent techno score from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, combined with the film's intense sound design, adds to the energy of the film. It is a pure, exhilarating, joyful experience to behold. Challengers is one of my favorite films of the year, not only because it is a ton of fun, but the dynamics between its characters are so rich that I find myself picking up on new things each time I return. It is the reason Luca Guadagnino is one of my absolute favorite filmmakers, and why I am so excited by his continued relationship with Koritsky's. For my full thoughts on Challengers, you can check out episode 20. Finally, my number one film of 2024, the film that has stayed at the top of this list ever since I saw it, is director Jane Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow. A deeply moving depiction of the trans experience, I Saw the TV Glow follows Owen, played by Justice Smith, as he is growing up in the American suburbs. He becomes friends with an older student, Maddie, played by Jack Haven, who introduces him to a mysterious late-night TV show called The Pink Opaque. Owen becomes obsessed with the show, watching episodes on videotapes that Maddie makes, until one day the show is canceled, and Maddie disappears. It is only then that Owen starts to reckon with the reality of the show, and its true meaning in his life. Schoenbrun's film at times feels like a fever dream. It is surrealist, dare I say Lynchian, and in its pursuit of emotion over and above plot concerns our culture has become so obsessed with, I Saw the TV Glow is able to arrive at difficult truths about the trans experience and how we engage with media. Often the experience of coming out, or even the experience of first realizing you are queer, is watered down. But Schoenbrun uses the language of horror and the relatable experience of getting sucked up in a TV show to show how utterly confusing, disorienting, and complicated it all can be. In my full review for I Saw the TV Glow, I highlighted how Schoenbrun's surreal, uncanny depiction of the suburbs represents both the internal feeling of dysphoria, that your present reality is somehow not correct, and the external pressures of American society. Unfortunately, months later, that external reality has gotten even worse, as America is now experiencing rapid suburban sprawl. In the first month of this anti-trans administration, trans military members have come under attack. There have been restrictions placed on trans folks' use of federal bathrooms. Trans people have experienced problems with renewing their passports, and an order restricting gender-affirming care for transgender individuals age 18 and under has been issued. On top of that, acknowledgement of the very existence of trans people is being erased across federal agencies, and funding for research concerning gender identity is being restricted. In short, the United States government has essentially declared war on trans people. Roger Ebert famously spoke of cinema as the great empathy machine, a powerful art form that allows us to inhabit the perspectives of those unlike ourselves, visit places we've never been, and grow to understand the full spectrum of human experience. Artistically audacious and emotionally resonant, I Saw the TV Glow is one of the greatest empathy machines I've ever seen. At a time when trans people need empathy and solidarity more than ever, may it serve as a beacon of hope for those who are navigating their gender identity and a call to action for the rest of us. I Saw the TV Glow stands among the greatest queer cinema has to offer, and director Jane Schoenbrun has already proven themselves to be one of our most important working auteurs. I can't wait to see what they have next. You can check out my full review for the film in episode 20. And that'll do it for this celebration of the best films of 2024. A reminder that you can view my full top 20 list on my website at twotticketsplease.substack.com. Thanks for watching.